Good afternoon, everybody. Sean here from the Trusted Business Community Association. And today I'm joined all the way from Canada. I'm joined by Richard Crossman, who's from Richard Crossman's Enterprise. Richard Crossman is a guy who I've met over recent months through our networking and our collaborative networking. And I just couldn't wait to have a chat with him to find out a little bit more about him. We had that meeting. We realized that there was a synergy between us. And Richard is now the proud owner of that badge of trust as an accredited member, because what this guy offers is just out of this world. Richard engages with your audience with spellbinding storytelling. He's articulate, he's warm and trustworthy, and that I can vouch for. Voiceover for e-learning, narration, corporate work, explainer videos, medical, commercial, and much, much more. And just to add, he's an award-winning actor as well. I think you'd probably understand, being a voiceover, you probably need something in the acting career to actually bring that to the fore. But he has done, and I'm so proud to have him as part of this association. Richard Crossman, welcome.
Thank you, Sean. I really appreciate the time you're going to spend with me today.
Love it. I wondered how you were going to answer that first welcome, and sure enough, you didn't surprise me. Richard, obviously, I've just covered an awful lot of what you do for people, for businesses, for individuals. You know, we're coming up to Christmas, and I already know that that's something that's really dear to you. But we'll go into that. I'll let you tell people more about that as well. But also, all the other stuff, there's so much in there for you to offer, whether it be an individual or small business or a big corporation or a medical corporation, whatever it is. Can you tell us a little bit more? How did you get into this? What was the driving force to get you into the work that you do?
Well, it actually goes back a long way, and it combines both the acting and the love of Christmas. My very first acting job was a recitation of "'Twas the Night Before Christmas" by Clement Moore in a Christmas show at the age of 3. So from there, I was on stage. I've sort of semi-retired from stage work just before COVID. Still do a little bit. I've done 25 years on camera. And voice acting was just sort of the next step in the process. I looked at it, getting into it for quite some time, thinking it would be really cool to voice a cartoon character. And then once I got into it, realized how expansive the voiceover industry is, and found a lot of other things that I like to do even more than cartoon characters, although I still do those too. With the medical narration, the e-learning, the corporate, all of that kind of thing. So it's been an interesting journey over the last 1,613 years.
You sound almost as old as I am. Anyway, so the things that you've got involved in, tell us a little bit about the work that you've done for others, because obviously some of the people listening into this today, well, I'm sure will be keen to find out the variation of how you could potentially help them potentially as a business or as an individual.
Well, one of the first things, and probably most recognizable other than cartoon characters, is commercials for radio and television. And I've done a few of those for local organizations and businesses. I've done some audiobooks, mainly nonfiction, autobiographical stuff, but, political science, business, that kind of thing. And then we get into sort of the full-blown voiceover work for companies and individuals. And for companies, I work with medical companies, either those who create drug studies or who create medications and want to put out information for that, or who create medical equipment and want to put out training videos on how to use it and that sort of thing. I do e-learning, everything from English as a second language, because I have 16 dialects and accents and more that I can use. I've done a couple of English as a second language where they want students to be able to pick up English from more than just an American or a British accent, so I can give them a variety of those. I do e-learning for corporate training, internal training, sales, the health and safety, HR onboarding, all of that sort of thing. I do corporate, again, internal training. I do corporate explainers, which can be put on websites or YouTube or however they want to do it, whether it's internal or external. Health and safety. I work with a couple of companies that do health and safety videos. I had the pleasure of working with a company about a year and a half ago. It was a health and safety reminder for a manufacturing company. It was animated. There were 3 characters, and I was able to voice all 3 characters. So it saved having to hire extra voice actors for the company that was putting the video together. And I've done some really cool stuff. And one of the things I love about voiceover is that I learn something out of nearly every script I record. Whether it's to do with costume design, whether it's to do with medical, whether it's to do with how to operate a robotic machine for an automotive company. It varies, and it's just a vast array of information. And then you get into the audiobooks, and there's even more there. So one of the most interesting things I did was an internal product and services. They were changing new products and how the products worked in the company in computers. And I had to learn some very interesting computer technology and try and figure out how to make it sound interesting. Because to the average person, it's not going to be interesting.
No, no. I suppose there's a few industry sectors out there that you think, how can I make this sort of stand out? How can I engage with the audience that's going to be wanting to listen to this? And of course, some things are relevant. You look at it and think, how can I make that something that is more than just what it is? Because some industries are very sort of staid and very static, aren't they, in what they work within? So trying to draw attention must be difficult in some industry sectors. But you would use your skills to actually create that engagement.
I'm in discussion right now with a company that's doing an e-learning module, and it's fairly dry material. And what we're talking about is rescripting it a little bit so that it's a question and answer. And there will be 2 different characters. There'll be the person asking the questions, there'll be a person doing the answering. And by doing it that way, it's a little more engaging for the people who are listening, and it's not quite as dry as it might be otherwise, because the person who's explaining it is the expert. The person who's asking the questions isn't, and you have to try and get the non-expert to understand what it is you're talking about. So I'm hoping that project will go through. It sounds like it's going to be an interesting one and lots of fun.
Yeah, certainly does. And of course, like you say, you're learning every time because you're learning different industry technology, terminology. You have to, I suppose, get to understand the industry that you're talking about. Although it's scripted, to make it come across, seamlessly genuine and transparent, you've got to get underneath that script as well, I suppose.
Yeah, and that's why one of my taglines is spellbinding storytelling. I look to find the story. I get rid of the jargon and make it accessible to people. Make it clear and concise so that people can understand it and absorb it. Because, if you're talking about compliance or something like that, that is a legal requirement, and people aren't listening, they disengage, and there's a problem, then the company is liable for could be millions of dollars.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's an important part. Do you do what? I mean, obviously, you've talked about some of the big stuff there as well, and some of the real sort of like strong and powerful stuff. Do you ever get involved in, like you sort of like your big corporate blue chips have got hold messages on telephones and things like that? Do you ever get involved with that sort of stuff?
Well, I haven't done any of the big blue chip companies, but I have done a number of on-hold answering machine and telephone answering things, generally for smaller local companies,
Right.
Doctors' offices, lawyers, that sort of thing. I was working with a retail company a while back. Unfortunately, that one didn't go through. It happens sometimes, but it was going to be an online general system. And then there was also a prompt that says, if you want to find out about this week's specials, which would have been a rotating, changing thing, but they decided not to go ahead with that. And then another thing I do too, as you might be able to tell from the shirt I'm wearing today, I do portray Santa Claus, Father Christmas, and I do a number of Christmas greetings for telephone answering systems from Santa Claus and the company. Ho, 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 you've reached such and such a company, and I'm just here visiting, and I wanted to say thank you for calling and have a wonderful holiday season. And now I'll turn you back over to our operator, sort of thing. So
Yeah.
there's ways we can work a number of things in with that.
I should imagine this time of year is such a great time of year for yourself as well, because there's not just people in business that are going to be would want to make something special. Even families with young children could utilize your services, where they, I suppose, you could have a Zoom. Santa's come up to completely up to date, and he's got Zoom. Kids come and have a listen. Like, yeah, Santa, we've got Santa here. I can imagine that's such a wonderful feeling when you see the responses of the people that you're reaching out to.
Well, in 2020, I started doing virtual visits because we couldn't go in person. So we created a couple of Christmas backgrounds. This is the mailroom at the North Pole.
Right.
And I do a 10-minute or a 15-minute virtual visit. And in 2020, we did 5 countries. Last year, we did 9 countries. And I had about 45 or 50 calls in total. But we also did something I hadn't thought about when I started doing the virtual calls. Sometimes families can't be together at Christmas because branches of the family are in different countries. So I had a couple of sets of grandparents send me a script. We pre-recorded the video, and they sent it to the kids on Christmas morning.
Right.
So that they were getting a personalized message from Santa or Father Christmas, depending on where you're from, on Christmas morning. And that was a lot of fun.
I should imagine it was. It's and as I say, knowing the impact it has to the youngsters that are listening into that must really sort of warm your heart. It really must do.
Oh, it certainly does. And very often I have found that the parents are as excited as the kids, if not more so. Because let's face it, we're all kids.
We are. We know. Yeah, I often get told, my wife often says to me, "You're Peter Pan, you'll never grow up." But
well, I've always said I would grow older, but never grow up.
No, that's it. That's the way to be. Grow older and wiser, but never grow up.
Well, I'm not sure about the wiser part either.
Oh, brilliant. So tell me, with obviously Christmas is upon us. It's very much upon us. What's your plans for this year? How's it going? What's going on in the background at the North Pole? Tell us a little bit more about what's coming this Christmas in your enterprise.
Well, in the local area where I am, I've got quite a number of in-person visits planned, corporate, community, schools, a couple of family visits. I've been invited once again to read "'Twas the Night Before Christmas" story at a Christmas concert in mid-December. And I have a group of Victorian carolers, which will be going out over the course of the holiday season as well to a number of venues. But behind the scenes, I also create a fruitcake, and everybody says, "Oh God, fruitcakes!" This recipe is actually very close to 200 years old, and legend in the family says it came from Balmoral Castle, but I'm not certain that that's actually true.
Okay.
But it's a wonderfully moist, rich fruitcake, and it doesn't contain rum; it contains brandy. So I create that. Most people don't realize I'm a certified pastry chef by trade and was in that business for a number of years. So that's my one tribute to Christmas from the kitchen. I used to do gingerbread houses and all the rest of it. But I'm also a costume designer for film and television. And right now I've got 3 Santa Claus suits in process for 3 clients that I have. I've built probably about 35 or 40 Santa suits over the last 15 years or so. For other Santa Clauses who do performances here, there, and everywhere around. And I actually sent one to the UK about 3 years ago.
Right.
So there's all of that going on in behind
Behind the scenes.
the, the mailroom, which you're seeing right here.
Absolutely brilliant. It's always a pleasure to meet different industries, and of course the association has multiple industries. We're not just tied to one specific sector. It's always great to meet different people from different sectors and find out a little bit more about them. Those that are listening in today, who you may have sparked an interest with some of the things that we've discussed, how would they find you to get in touch with you to ask further questions, or just to find out a little bit more about how you could potentially help them?
Well, there are a number of ways. If you're talking Christmas, the Christmas website is simply santadundas.ca. If you want voiceover, it's voiceactingmagic.com. That's one of my voiceover websites. The other one is yourmedicalnarration.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram. And I have a voiceover account on Instagram, which is Richard Crossman VO. I have costumes, which is Heaver costumes, like Heaver Castle, or rhymes with fever. And then I have the Victorian Carolers also on there, and a personal one as well. So there are a number of ways to catch me, and Facebook is the same. I have all of those sites on, or those pages on Facebook as well. So there's lots of ways to get a hold of me.
And of course, people can find you in the Trusted Business Community directory, which obviously is equally just as engaging as what we're doing here today, because you can have a video conference call with Richard through that directory. So a real powerful tool to actually get to know Richard on a face-to-face level, rather than over the phone or via email. It's a much more personalized directory that we've got. So, reach out through the Trusted Business Community directory, or just go direct and find him on LinkedIn, find him on Facebook or Instagram, and search those search terms. And I'm sure if you just write Richard Crossman in, he's going to be coming up, one of the top guys. For those people listening in, obviously we're rolling our different interviews each week. We're interviewing different organisations. So if you've liked this interview and you'd like to hear a few more of what's coming up, or even some of the past ones that we've done, don't forget to like and subscribe below, and make sure that you save that and add it to your favourites on YouTube. This will be shared. This interview will be shared, as all the others have been, across social media. So hopefully those people that you obviously would love to reach out to, you will see you on social media anyway through what we're putting out. But the most important thing is, do get hold of this man. It's an absolute privilege and a pleasure to have him as part of the association. He's already reaching out to those within the association, and more importantly, the association membership is reaching out to him. That's the power of what this man can bring. Richard Crossman, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'm so looking forward to Christmas. I really can't wait.
It's been a great pleasure talking to you, Sean. Thank you very much for your time.
There you go, all the way from Scotland or Canada, wherever you want him to be from, he can be that person. Thank you so much, my friend. I really appreciate you joining me today. Once again, for those listening in, Richard Crossman Enterprise, get in touch with him. Speak to you soon. Thanks ever so much, guys, for listening in.
Thanks, Sean. Take care.
Thank you very much, Richard, for joining me.